Sultan of Strategery, the bridge-defying, will only answer to the whatnot of Zur and R ever since he had that ill-advised protein shake, but he still remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, Ed?
Jim, this episode, we are going to talk about Superman Lost issue number 2, and we're also going to talk about Batman Legacy issue 900, a.k.a. issue 135. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Night Terrors over at DCBS. Not only do we have issue 1 and 2 of the main series, issue 1 is 50% off, and issue 2 is 40% off. But we also have all the additional crossover issues. Action Comics, Angel Breaker, Batman, Black Adam, Catwoman, Detective Comics, First Blood, Flash, Green Lantern, Harley Quinn, Joker, Nightwing, Poison Ivy, Punchline, Ravager, Robin, Shazam, Superman, Titans, Wonder Woman, and Zatanna. All of those are also 40% off cover price. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, we have some deals of the week that are really cool. The Sandman Mystery Theater Compendium Trade Paperback 1. $59.99 regularly, 50% off, only $29.99. This is an amazing, amazing series. If you have not read it, please do yourself a favor. Grab this version because it's the way to get it. I adore this series. Superman Space Age is available in hardcover. It's $29.99 regularly, 50% off, only $14.99. If you've missed these books, being able to get them at 50% off is the way to go. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to shout out at the beginning of this episode, just because it relates to this podcast. On Is It Jaws, a brand new episode was just released where we cover Batman Returns. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, please join us over there. Without further ado, Mr. Segulin, what kind of podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the Atom.
Our first discussion this episode is going to be of the miniseries Superman Lost, Book 2. Plot and script by Christopher Priest. Carlo Pagulayyan on plot and pencils. Jason Paz on inks. Jeremy Cox on colors, Willie Schubert on letters, Carlo Pagulayyan, Jason Paz with Elmer Santos on the cover, Lee Weeks with Elizabeth Breitweiser on the variant cover, Howard Porter with Hi-Fi on the 125 variant cover, Gillian Grant is the assistant editor, Brittany Holzer is the editor, Paul Kaminsky is the group editor, and special thanks to Dave Van Domelen, PhD. Superman, of course, is created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And this was an interesting one because there's a lot of miniseries that are coming out these days, and I say that in a good way. There's a lot of choice out there. And this one was one that I was excited about when I heard about it because, we don't get like a ton of Superman miniseries. And so I said, we've got a lot of miniseries, but, it's not irregular to see one that's Batman family focused, right? Or to be like a miniseries that is a book that they're considering maybe an expanded series or a series of miniseries. Supergirl, for example, would be a lot more prone to get a miniseries than Superman these days. When I heard that Christopher Priest was doing a 10-issue Superman miniseries, I was jonesing for it because I just love the writing. This has been delivering 2 issues in. I didn't know what to expect from it, and that's always a good thing, as far as I picked it based on recognition of the creative talent overall, and that's they've delivered for me on this one. I really enjoyed the first 2 issues. Where are you at on this one?
When I read the concept, I was like, ooh, that sounds pretty kind of neat. I like that idea. And it was one of those things when you go into a book having this could be a really cool story, and the fear of that is when you go into a book and you have higher expectations. Now, I've read some of the Priest stuff. he's not anybody that was always on my radar of, oh my God, Priest wrote this. But I knew the name, and I'm like, hey, I remember reading him. I remember I liked his style, but I couldn't put my finger on what the book of his that I read. So it was one of those weird things going into it. So going into this, I had this very positive outlook, and that sometimes can really hit you. And sometimes can really, you go in thinking one thing, and you're like, oh my God. I went into this, and I got to tell you, 2 issues in, I'm 100% all in on this. I'm loving this story. This right now is just it's living up to the ideas I had in my head. And I think that is something that really is, something, because, when you start building stuff in your mind, you start thinking where it could go and this and that, and, the whatnot behind what this story could become. This book is giving it to me. And I love how it's, we're seeing the past, we're seeing him lost, and then we're seeing the present day, him dealing with it. We're seeing how it's affecting Lois, how it's affecting Bruce. I think that is the Lois Lane and Lois and Bruce relationship that's going on in this book is absolutely outstanding. I love their little interactions, and Clark who would normally be a peacekeeper, is not completely in his right mind. So he's dealing, so he can't be his normal positive self, but he tries to fix things, in his own way. And I love how, again, it's the book, yes, it's about Superman lost, but it is about really the ramifications of how it's affecting the people around him. So that is a really cool concept of this.
I didn't mean to cut you off there. I think you're nailing this, and what I really love about it. So Superman's lost 20 years of his life because of an event. For Lois, these things are happening in an instant. They're very short, but this is world-changing because the man who came back, he left for a short period of time, but the man who came back has been changed. He's staring off into the distance. There's a natural lead, whether it is your spouse and partner, or it's a family member, or a very close friend. Your natural instinct is to want to do something to help fix that. And when you feel powerless to do that, which is what Lois is feeling. This is Lois Lane. How often do you see Lois Lane powerless? Not very often. In this story, you see Lois Lane who is powerless, and at least in the opening act of the story. And I think it's a very real, very genuine portrayal of what that looks like when it's Lois Lane. There's a lot of people for her to be mad at because of and sometimes it's not even just being mad at the person, right? It's being mad at, this is Superman. This is what he does, right? He goes and saves the world. But there's always that fear of, we always think of Superman as invulnerable, right? And nothing can harm Superman. Yet there's been so many stories where there have been those things because Superman's constantly being exposed to something new, something different, something he's never encountered before. Like any other superhero, you have to bob and weave from that. And sometimes it uncovers vulnerabilities that you didn't expect. Losing 20 years of your life is how do you come back from that? That's not something, there isn't like an energy drink that fixes that.
Yeah.
And she's angry at Bruce. She's angry to some level at the Justice League. She's angry at Clark, but how do you manifest that anger at Clark when you need to support and care for Clark and try to get Clark back to being Clark as you knew him? There's a recovery period here. So you can't do what your heart is like, you want to scream, Yeah. And I loved that there were things that didn't happen on the page, but you could feel emotionally from the characters because that's real, right? It isn't always, not everything manifests. We all bottle things up or project them in different ways as ways of dealing with a problem. And this is where it's just really stellar writing. Because I felt all of those angers, all those angles, all those possibilities coming off of the page. It's a different kind of Superman story, yet very Superman. And there's that balance that I think is really critical here. That this is something, if it keeps delivering like this, 2 issues in, this is going to become one of those stories that I can't wait for the collected edition. And,
God, yeah.
We talk about all the time about, multiple purchases of product nowadays. I love my digital to be able to read on the iPad. I like that convenience and things like that for the first run through. For me, it's then archival afterwards. What do I get afterwards? And what I always like about collected editions is there's usually extras that are associated with that. It's also nice to have it in that physical tome. I still like paper. It's how I'm getting the paper. And I'm very selective as far as what is a singles, what is a hardcover. This one I'm hoping is a deluxe edition, some form of oversized hardcover. I know the wait for the absolutes is always the thing, as far as if this goes to an absolute. I don't know that I'm necessarily saying the artwork's gorgeous on this, by the way, so this is going to seem weird what I'm going to say. I'm not necessarily saying this has to be an absolute. I just want something with a larger paper format to it, so the deluxe edition will work just fine for me. I just want it on that quality kind of collected with hopefully extras. I would love to see sketch work. I'd love to see, the usual little things that you come to expect from your better collected editions. I want it from this already. You know what else I'd love to see? Script pages. One of the issues, give me the script. I would love to see what the scripting looks like for this, because there are things that we're talking about here that have manifested on the page through the artwork. Some of it's not dialogue driven. Some of it is, nice marriage of both, that I just feel like this is a very smart, character-driven story. And I love when they do this with Superman. This is the Superman that I think you and I both really connect deeply with over the years when we've talked about shows that we've liked. We talked about stories that are our favorite. This is that Superman. And that's something that, to get me that excited in an era where I feel like we're already getting terrific Superman, I think is hard to do. And this is a series that, quickly jumped to the top of my, wow, this is a surprise.
Yeah. Well, and it's little subtle stuff that, with, you mentioned how with Lois blaming Bruce, blaming the Justice League, blaming Clark. Because I love that line when he's like, Clark's like, hey, lighten up on Bruce. It wasn't his fault. I know whose fault it was. Right there. She's blaming Clark on that.
Sure.
And she immediately feels guilty. You can, that she blames Clark, but then she feels guilty about it because that's what Clark did, what Clark does. And you think back to even when, they show the scenes right before he's leaving. He's like, hey, I'll be right back. Oh, okay. And she was just working on her paper. She wasn't thinking anything. She didn't give him any goodbye, love you, any of that stuff. Just, doing her thing and working on her story. So she blames herself for that. So and I love the thinking off page on this because, she can't walk out of the room and then say something. With us, if we're having an issue with somebody, we don't want to say it to their face. We can verbalize it out, like driving in the car, you just yell out a primal scream or you say something out loud as long as, they're not around and they can't hear you. With Clark and his super hearing, anything she says, he will hear. So she's got to be on guard to watch what she slips up when he's not around. And I love just thinking that kind of stuff of Lois Lane sitting at her keyboard, just typing out all the stuff she would love to say because she can't say it out loud. Or Lois who does Lois go to if she has an issue with this? Who can she talk to? Because again, the verbalizing it out loud, he can hear it, but also who would understand exactly what she's going through and not, think of her as this horrible person where her husband almost sacrificed his life to save the world and you're feeling bad about it, and so she feels bad about that. And I love just that, and then just in a couple panels, just in a look on her face, all this information is just flashing through my head. What I know about Lois, what I know about Clark, what I know about the relationship, what we've seen so far, the lead up to it and the aftermath. It's, again, wonderful writing gets you thinking of stuff like this off page. And then when you're actually physically seeing it, because we mentioned the artwork, and again, I'm going to mention again how beautiful it is. This right here, I love this art style.
Yeah.
This is my this falls in that go-to, my go-to style of what I, really enjoy. Of an art style. So this for me is just hitting it on so many levels, and I'm like, man, I'm loving this. And and again, it's the setup for the next episode. Set up for the next episode, because we're just getting this initial glimpses. Mm-hmm. Gets you thinking, how does Clark rebound? How does Lois deal with this? What happens with Bruce? What happens? What happened with him out in the outside, when he was lost in space? Those stories are just as incredible as the stories of back here on Earth. So I think that for me, it's not like, oh, okay, now we got to go this story. No, it's like, and I want more. Give me more of all the stories.
I love that comics have become Paramount Plus for you, because you almost never say issues anymore.
No.
And but I get it. I get what you're talking about. You want the next piece. The artwork, I wanted to piggyback off of something you're saying. I marveled at the detail in the artwork. Those little things, like I'm looking at a page where like Bruce is getting patched up by Alfred. Just all the fine details that go into the Batcave, even to the cracks on the floor. Just giving the sense that this is a used place. Not things are clean and high tech, but it also looks like a facility that is regularly used. There's an importance to that, to this sense that, this is something this guy uses daily. He comes running back from missions. That lived in feel needs to be there. And there's something to that. And this obviously the creative team on this really is going out of their way to make this be something special. You were talking about Lois's feelings before and her reaction. I think it's also this desire to fix the situation and feeling powerless, not being able to your point, vocalize it. Because who do you go to? If you start typing feverishly, Clark's going to start asking questions about that. It's almost like she needs what they had in Get Smart, when those, what was it?
Yeah.
The table, was it a cone, almost like a cone of silence or something like that?
Yeah, it was a cone of silence.
Yeah, that would come, and they would, but the best part with that was nobody could hear each other in it. But it's almost like she needs that to go into just to scream. And I totally loved that feeling. This is her husband who needs her. And that's the guilt piece that you were talking about, was something that really resonated with me. She can't provide him, like, he needs her love right now, and she needs to give that to him and wants to give that to him, but's angry at him at the same time. And she's powerless right now to fix that. And it's such a mixture of emotions. And that's something that, when you get that layer, like seeing that sequence where she's talking to Bruce and Bruce is giving her tips, and inside information for an investigation. She's basically going in to check on Clark. He is lying in the floor in a ball. Clark Kent is doing this, and you get why. And we're seeing like flashbacks to him with the lasso, knowing that this was his tether, and he's still haunted by this. I mean, we don't see Superman in this state very often. And she's talking him down. Breathe, Clark. Breathe. Come on. Stop it now. And, she's like, I was doing it again. And that was his bad dream, was he was reliving it and holding his breath. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's just seeing that moment where she's got to hold him and bring him back to reality, bring him back to balance, was something that was such a powerful moment, because it doesn't take away, this is Superman. We know he survived something that nobody else could, right? Yep. But it has an effect on him. There is, he was raised on Earth. He was a Kansas farm boy. There's those elements, and we sometimes get these glimpses into him and to the, for lack of a better term, the human side of Superman. And this is where I connect with him. This is where I love this character, because it's being able to see him when you can relate to him and know, well, geez, if Superman can go through this stuff, I think I can pick myself up and go through my day. I mean, because that's horrifying what he went through here. Horrifying.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think that they captured really well.
And the neat thing is, we're just beginning to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only on issue 2, and we're already realizing, okay, he went through some serious stuff. That is something that really they did well showing. And the whole breathe thing, that was outstanding.
Yeah.
Again, didn't even think, it's Superman. He had to hold his breath. How long can he hold his breath for? That, again, little stuff like that really flexes the Superman power. And in this issue, he does explain how he had that liquid oxygen, and then later he had another planet, and he was just bouncing back and forth. But in the interim stuff, he was flying through space, holding his breath most of the time.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of hit oxygen when he needs it, but continues on holding his breath. That is something that just really gets you, because holding your breath while sleeping, that Clark had to do that. Because he had to sleep in period. I'm assuming he had to sleep. Maybe he didn't because he is Superman, but he was laying there sleeping or curled up in a ball holding his breath. It just, that kind of stuff that's the amazing stuff on the Superman power levels sometimes.
Well, when he was floating there, actually in book 2, when you see that sequence where he's floating there and the aliens come upon him, if he's not sleeping, he sure got himself slowed down. He slowed down his heart rate, different things, doing everything he can to conserve energy and to conserve his breath. So an interesting sort of piece there where we get to see what happened to him from inside his head, but also kind of a connection to what's going on in the world, around him. It's what Lois is saying to him is triggering what he was saying to himself in that sequence.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something that was really rich. You touched on something before that I want to make sure we don't ignore. So when you open up book 1 is telling the story of what happened to Superman almost from an outside perspective, right? We don't really know what this looked like from Superman's side. With book 2, we're kind of reliving the events of book 1 and expanding them deeply. But we're now seeing a lot more from Superman's perspective. I love the mystery aspect of this, and it's something that I'm making a mistake if I don't highlight that that's a part of this book too. We don't, you nailed it. We don't fully understand yet everything that's happened to him. 20 years of his life was lost, and it actually happened. So we're getting now to see what that looks like, how that unfolded, and what it looked like for Superman. I'm really loving that piece. The fact that, yes, I've seen some things again in book 2 that did happen in book 1, but they're totally from the perspective of Clark, totally from the perspective of filling in the blanks there. These are the pieces that I think Bruce and Lois in particular are most interested in, because if they really want to help the spouse and friend in any way, shape, or form, they need to know what happened to him. They need to understand more deeply what he actually went through during that time, because, again, it was a finger snap for them in comparison, but for him, huge ramifications. Yeah. And that mystery aspect of this is something that the writing is just nailing, because there's nothing that I felt like, it's interesting to say that I saw events that happened in book 1 again in book 2, and I never felt any of that was being regurgitated. It was captivating. Like, I wanted them to go back. Yes, do go back here to fill in the blanks. Show me what happened. I want to watch that footage. And that's what this feels like. It's like every little tidbit. What do you mean? You've got another camera angle? Please show me it. And I feel like this book's going to just be loaded with that in the best possible way you possibly can.
Well, 100%. I loved how they did that, where we get the thing, and the end of issue 1 was him arriving back on Earth. So now we're getting the rest of the story. Mm-hmm. But I really like their usage of plugging stuff in. Like, when we first see him drifting, we see the damaged container. We don't find out later on how it got damaged. So even within the story, they're kind of, changing around the order of events occurring. And I think that's kind of a neat way of handling it, because you think about it, the first people he runs into, the red-skinned aliens, they're the ones who find him with the damaged container. They pull him in, and he explains to them how he was able to collapse, contain the containment. Within the next group that he finds, he explains how the oxygen, his oxygen supply got damaged. And it's kind of a neat way of handling the story aspect of the way they're telling the story, that for me, I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm getting more of the pieces, but there's still much more mystery out there. What's next? What's the next part of the story? How is this going to play out? And I like the layout on, again, the story crafting, how they're doing it really well.
I do too. I think that is something that was... here's the interesting part with this. I didn't expect the amount of Justice League involvement we'd have in the story initially. I think when you think of this title, Superman Lost, you're thinking Superman Focus. And to me, these stories, even though the Justice League are supporting cast in this, these stories where you see that this was a Justice League event and there was 4 of them trying to be a tether for him. I mean, you're seeing a sequence where you've got Wonder Woman's lasso on him, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter. Talk about your heavy hitters of power are trying to keep him locked on our world so that way because he's the one that can go through and do all this, but they're not willing to leave that to chance. They know this is dangerous for him, and they want to, imagine, like, you could almost do a mini series on how this is affecting them, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
That part is really, really fascinating for me, is that he went through this whole thing. He's trying to save the universe. There is no way, there's no other way to do this. If he doesn't do this, everyone's dead. So you sit there and go, okay, how much can we really scold him? Because if he didn't do this, we wouldn't be around to scold him. And that's another conundrum to this whole thing, right? You're mad at him. You hate what's happened to him. You hate how it's changed your life and the life of others, the fact that he went through this. What does this mean for this Superman that's come back, as far as who is he going to be because of all of that? You can't help but look at that and go, but what do you fault? Like, what else could they have done? What is the other pathway to this? And that's an interesting little twist, right? There's a reality to it. Because in The Fly, in that moment, if they had waited, if they'd hesitated, that conversation might not even be happening. I love stories like this. It's a Kobayashi Maru, right?
Yes. And he found the way to solve the no-win situation because he's Superman. Yeah. And I love how, again, Superman is Superman, but it's not even just because Superman is so cool. It's actually his genetic breakdown was able to, his body was part of the singularity and was able to stabilize it. Nobody other than Superman could have done this, just because you needed the Kryptonian DNA, the way his body reacts with the gravitational forces, the way his body reacts with the energy forces and the energy field, and it was actually his body needed to be there. Maybe a Lantern could have recreated the scenarios and maybe done something, but it had to be the Kryptonian. It had to be his actual body. And I love that, that moment, in this when he realizes what's going to happen. He's like, I'm getting pulled in. I got to untie, or I'll pull all of them with me because they'll never let go. So he had to make that call. So he knew he was in for, what was going to be the final ride of his life, maybe. Or it was one of those things. He really didn't know what was going to happen next. And that's the stuff that makes Superman Superman. That he's like, okay, this is it. I'm the only one who can do this. I've got to, sacrifice myself. And I loved just how, again, that's playing out in his mind over and over again. As he initially tells the story to these aliens, he's not as remorseful. He's not as messed up in the head. Later on, as he's thinking this stuff when he's on Earth, there's that whole guilt and survivor's guilt and guilt of just that the trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, right there, big time going on, of what he did and what he put his friends through and all that. Now, his friends only went through a minute of grief. He went through 20 years of it. And I love just, again, you see that. And I do want to see the other Justice Leagues and his interaction. But right now, we're not going to see that, until the end, probably.
Barry's use in this issue, and thinking particularly of issue 2, as we're getting more of an expanded look at what Superman went through. I loved his use, where he's, as the police scientist, and especially not just police scientist, but as the Flash, everything he's had to do to get to know what it means to be the Flash and to expand his own effectiveness, understanding different tricks that he can do with his powers that he wouldn't have understood unless he was experimenting with them and getting to know how, basically how molecular structure works. He's analyzing this situation. I think he's disrupted the collapse. Superman's cells dynamically respond to gravimetric fields. His body is becoming part of the reaction. Oh boy, guys. And it was just such great dialogue because every member of the Justice League while they're really kind of almost cameo-like in what they're doing, I thought that they had a really strong addition. It was a good use. Barry Allen wasn't just there doing like cool Flash stuff. Barry Allen was there analyzing the situation. And I think that's really important for a writer to remember. If you're going to put these characters in, get them right. It adds something to the story. And I really appreciated the detail put into the usage of each member of the Justice League in this.
Yeah, and I like that Barry figured out what was going to happen. He knew Clark was going to get pulled in.
Yeah.
And that's why he's throwing, guys, it clicked in his brain what's happening, what the next thing, just as Clark is figuring out what's going to be the next thing. I love great usage of the Justice League in this. And then even as this is going on, this isn't the end. This is just really the beginning of the story. Because then you're flipping the pages and these aliens dump Clark on his home world, which is not his home world. He looks up 2 moons. Gravity forces are different. Oh, no, I'm not home yet. And again, you knew that was going to happen. You knew, because of the name of the series. But even without that, just the way things are going on Clark's luck here, he has no idea where in the universe he is. And he's yet to really find anybody who could possibly help him find his way home. So Clark's on his own on this. And it's absolutely wonderful. I love these little aliens, how it's the one guy's like, hey, I'll take the cape. And they're just like, they're scroungers, they're scavengers. They want something. The chamber that he had, it was useless to them. It would cost too much to tow it, so that was nothing for him. He liked the look of the cape, and I actually was thinking Clark was going to end up having to give up his cape, but I'm glad they didn't, because that's classic Clark. He needs to have it, and I like the fact that he didn't want to give it because that's the cape his mother made him.
Right, exactly. And those little important detail points are ones where Martha's not in this. I don't need her in this to just recognize, this is, the farm boy. It's important, those connections to family, because that's part of who he is, right? I adore Clark Kent. I think Clark Kent, as Clark Kent without the mask Clark Kent, is really who Superman is. There's that third persona, which I think is very unique to Superman. Well, I shouldn't say that. Batman has that too. But there's the Clark Kent that's the reporter. There is the Clark Kent that we see with Lois and the Kents. And then there is Superman that we see for the public. And I think that Clark Kent that's in the middle there is the real Clark Kent. And I think your best actors that have portrayed the character have done an excellent job of capturing all 3 instead of the 2. I think when you're capturing just the 2, you're missing an important layer that is Superman. This story is filled with that third one that I think is the one that we as the fans most connect with, right? Because it's the real person. And we get to see and get to know the real Superman. It's not the public persona. It is the one that is meant only for those that are closest to him. And you don't see any of the pretense, any of the cover-up or anything like that that naturally needs to be there. I think those are my favorite Superman stories. And there's zero reason in this story for him to cover anything up. He only can be him, right?
Yeah.
And that's where this story is, I think, thriving. I loved the effect sequences, like where you see the gravity pulling him in, and he's fighting with that, and you see he's becoming a meteor. So it's coming down to the planet. I really loved the art styling for that. Effects in comics, it's funny. I'm a techie. I've always loved computer platforms and gaming systems and things like that. And that's what I love about film, right? Special effects. I'm fascinated by an art team's ability to do stuff like this, where, there's like a swirling effect around him. And you get this sense of this overwhelming force pulling on Superman, because it's Superman. And this force is pulling on him, and he's trying to course correct from it. As he's being pulled down to the planet, he's looking and he's seeing the 2 moons, and it's giving him a point marker. Like, I love that this guy's so seasoned. Because we talk about Batman, right? And everything that Batman's been through, and that's where his strategy comes from. Superman is every bit of that. But it's different. And when you get to see Superman's way of doing it, he's falling towards a planet where I'd be freaking out. Even with his powers, I'd be freaking out. Like, okay, how am I going to land? And I mean, I'd like to think that there's that part of me that would go into logic, but I think my logic would be focused on how do I get out of this tailspin? How do I get control of the current situation I'm in? Not, oh, hey, there's 2 moons over there. I'm not on Earth anymore. Because that's a whole other layer of experience, right? That you've done enough that you you're doing everything I just said, but on top of that, you're also like, okay, I know when I do land, I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Well, and it's a neat thing because, you think about it with the 2 moons, that would change the gravitational pull. That would change the gravitational forces on the planet.
Yep.
So Clark's used to flying one way. He's got to improvise, on the fly. And it's like an uncomfortable landing. And then later on, we see he starts to get the groove of flying on this planet. It's not initially not anything pretty. And then eventually he gets to the flow where he starts understanding how I've got to do things different here versus how he had to do things different in outer space versus how he does things different on Earth. And again, it's kind of neat that they're applying these different principles to what he's dealing with, because that's something that, I'll be honest with you, I never really thought of, with him flying, how gravity or different planets would affect the flight. Mm-hmm. It's always, whether it's a yellow sun or a red sun, that affects Superman's powers. Well, here we have a yellow sun, but it's still, because the planet's laid out differently, because it's got these 2 moons, because of the various chemical and toxic waste going on. He's affecting things. It's affecting him differently. And I thought that, for me, was a really neat part of this story, that they're applying these different principles to affect Superman's powers.
Right. I love that this feels like a journey, and that along the way we're seeing lots of different alien races, lots of different casts of characters, where Clark is learning more about the rules of different places. Like with a kid with a respirator, I think the last thing he was expecting is somebody humanoid. We're expecting something else, right? That in doing what he did, he's potentially killing the kid, because this atmosphere doesn't support, breathing in the traditional sense. I loved when he encountered Victor.
Yeah.
Because we're getting to know more about these mysterious zealots. We're getting to learn a little bit more about this homeland. Clark immediately connects with it. Even wants to label the place Kansas, because of its relation. Any journey, right? You're looking at ways, how can I continue and enhance this journey? How can I go farther? Getting the jetpack, getting the breathing apparatus are all things that let Superman start heading home. Start trying to find his way back. I can't believe the amount of depth in the first 2 issues of this, because it's a normal page count for a comic series. It's not, because I double checked. I'm like sitting here, do we have expanded page count in this at all? No. It's normal comic issues, but they're getting a lot of story in and a lot of detail. And nothing is skimped on. I mean, the artwork, the backgrounds, everything, is very rich. And that's something I really appreciated from this. It's a very special piece because of that. The amount, I love the exploration aspect of this. Seeing Clark, it's funny, we got that story where Clark was off Earth for a while in the regular Action Comics, where it was on Warworld. This feels so completely different from that. I would have said after Warworld, I didn't want to jump right into another story of Clark traveling everywhere but Earth. Yeah. And yet I so want every bit of this. Like, I can't wait for this, because it totally feels different than what we were experiencing there, where he was a prisoner and being the symbol of motivation and fighting his way out. This isn't the same thing at all. And that's hard to do as well, to get you jonesing for a story where we've got Clark away from Earth again and seeing that journey. Because normally I like to see Clark, a healthy balance of Clark, and I think we are getting it in this, interacting with his family and friends and things like that. But this, I'm just as interested in his interacting with new races. The Victor sequence was fabulous in this. I thought that thing was great.
Well, one, it was neat seeing his interaction again with another person and how he's dealing with it. But also when he's telling him the story of how he survived to that point.
Yeah.
Because this was where taking off after bringing the engine over, he got launched wherever he got launched to because it basically went through a black hole.
Yeah.
That's how he got on the other side of the universe. Then showing him scavenging the ship to create that liquid oxygen tank that he could use for breathing. But also the concept of him slingshotting around celestial bodies, using their gravity to get a near light speed, to get to reach near light speed. I thought that was a really cool idea because think about it, him just flying, he's not going to have superhuman speed. Well, using the stars, he slingshots around. And again, showing Clark showing the intelligence of Clark that he's able to improvise and adapt this way. He's able to take that alien ship and make it a giant air tank for him, or a liquid tank for him. And it was really cool showing the scientist, the intelligence side of Superman. We get a lot of times where Superman's super powerful. You get the dun-dun-dun moments where you see he's a great guy, he's super powerful. Here we're seeing the intelligence. And that's something that I was like, that a lot of stories really don't show just how smart Clark is, how smart, the Kryptonian race is. I'm thinking back to, I can't even think of the name of it, Superman of All Seasons. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where he was talking and saying if he put his mind to it, he probably could develop a cure for cancer with the Kryptonian technology. But he doesn't get involved that way. No. Right here, we're seeing that Kryptonian intelligence that he has, that he's been given, that he learned, artificially through the fortress, through Jor-El, through the pod when he was flying, from Krypton. It's you're seeing that here, and I'm very happy when we get stories like this.
And agreeing with everything you're just saying. On top of that, though, I think what's often forgotten about Clark is the fact that journey didn't just stop there. Clark expanded on the fortress. There's the robot that was there. There is his study of races that he's encountered along the way. Like, Clark didn't just stop at the knowledge that he gained from those pieces. He kept going. It instilled in him a curiosity of learning about his powers, learning, to expand himself. And I think this nails all of those pieces. I love this Superman, right?
Yeah.
And I think Superman can be easily defined into different eras of his life too. And this is definitely a much more seasoned Superman. And I love that aspect of it. The ending page where you see him flying away with that, with his new look for, this particular sequence and the stuff that he's scavenged, I just think is way cool. Yeah. I love gadgets and gizmos, and I've referred to this on the podcast multiple times. I grew up loving the Supermobile, but not understanding why he needed it. And when I say not understanding why he needed it, I didn't spend a whole lot of time focusing on that. It was just that the Supermobile was cool. This thing has punching fists, and Superman can fly it around. He's got a vehicle. Well, everyone else has a vehicle. Why wouldn't Superman have one? And it makes sense that Superman's vehicle kind of mimics his powers, right? I didn't understand why he needed it. Now, as an adult, I'm continuing to read Superman. I'm like, not only do I understand why he needs a Supermobile and how cool that Corgi thing was that I had as a kid, but I'm seeing this, and I'm like, I love seeing gadgeted up Superman when there's a reason. Because when we don't get to see this very often, and there's a reason why you don't want to see it very often, because when you do, this kind of stuff's special. This is cool. What's he going to scavenge next? I like Pack Rat Clark. Let's find stuff out and see what Superman does. You're right. I'm seeing Superman's strategy because it's not going to be the same as Batman's. There will be elements of it that bleed in because they're friends, and he's learned from him just as much as Batman's learned from Superman. But there is a whole layer of it that only can be Clark. This look and this whole thing that he's doing right now is, I want an action figure of this, or a statue.
Yes, agreed. The bright yellow, the cold, the illuminated version of him, and actually that'd be a cool way to do the statue if they even actually had it lit up and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm all in on this. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. I want to see more of how he does this. But again, also in the back of my brain, I am thinking of, there's going to be more tragedy that Clark is going to face. Because right now, Clark's very optimistic, very positive. Okay, I'm on my way home. I'm on my way home. Where does it start breaking down for him? Because again, 20 years. He doesn't really know how long he's been traveling right now. Because there was no sunset, no sunrise, no, kind of calculation of time for him. But he's going to realize somewhere along the ways how long it's been. And, he's going to have even moments of just dead zones where it's just traveling. And you think about it, you go on a long road trip, and you start off the road trip, you're like, woohoo, let's rock and roll. You get that point in time in the middle of the road trip where you're just like, I just want this to end, please. Yeah. And Clark isn't even close to that point yet. He's still positive. I'm wondering when he gets to that, please let this end time of the road trip.
I love the shot of him flying away from the planet. I will always go back to Christopher Reeve. I was just listening this week to Talkville, and they were doing Rosetta, the episode with Christopher Reeve. They were talking through that. They had the show creators that were on as well. And it was interesting just to hear them talk about Christopher Reeve. And it took me back to that concept of, just Christopher Reeve being this icon in those sequences where he's flying around Earth. I will always get chills at that. I just think it's something that it's the music, the look, the smile on his face, the confidence, the way that they made me believe he was flying in those moments is something that, I can still say in 2023 still hits me. Yeah. And there's something to be said for that. That part was really, really kind of something that captured me in that sequence where it was reminiscent of what I think of when I think of Superman. It's why I wanted this as a statue. I always say poster, but I'm starting to run out of wall space. But I would love this as an art print too. I just love the outfit. Like that kind of. I've got so many Batman statues with that black and white collection that I adore because of each one's unique. Each artist has put their stamp on their concept on it. And it's amazing that you could do so many Batman statues and yet have everyone have a different, flavor to them. I would love a series of Superman statues where you get cool stuff like this, right? And I want one of him in the Supermobile. It's that I will start making space for.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned about with Christopher Reeves and all that. That is something that I did enjoy in the artwork. How it is obviously a nod to him. And they do capture some of those wonderful, that smirk, that smile, that energy that is, Christopher Reeves that he brought to the role. So it is part of the reason I do enjoy the artwork so much, because everything you were saying about just that, even that, like that, as I said, that final page, he's flying off and he's got that positive look to him. He's got that positive energy, because that is Superman. He's like, everything's gonna be okay, guys. We got this. It just, you go back to the beginning of the book when you see him later on. It's like, I want to see that transition.
Want to talk some Batman?
Always.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Our next discussion is on Batman 135, which is legacy number 900. The writer is Chip Zdarsky. Pencils by Mike Hawthorne, Jorge Jimenez, and Mikel Janin. Inks by Adriano Di Benedetto with Jorge Jimenez and Mikel Janin. Colors, Tome Mori with Romelu Fajardo Jr. Letters, Clayton Cowles. Cover, Jorge Jimenez. Variant covers, Joe Quesada, Kevin Nolan, and Richard Eisenoff. Gabriel Delato, Kaelngu. Kale New, Jim Chung, and J. David Ramos, Lee Bermeo, Stanley Artjern Lowell. The associate editor is Dave Wielgosz. Editor is Ben Abernathy. And, of course, Batman was created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger.
So this story, you've got to be where I'm at with Chip Zdarsky as a writer now, right? I mean, he's got to be on your list, right?
Oh, yeah, he's on the list. He's definitely on the list. And it's the good list, not the bad list.
Yeah. But, I mean, this story, it went to all the places I wanted to go. It had conclusions to arcs in this, this mini story, like mini arcs within this story that I thought I wanted them to go one way, and he took me to places that were better than where I wanted them to go. And I love when a story does that. The piece, I don't know what the heck I missed in 134. I went and reread 134 prior to reading 135 because I did this opening page where he's got no hand, and I'm like, wait, when did that happen? I don't know what I missed in the last issue when I read it. I didn't catch that he lost his hand in the battle. And I feel like a dunce because it was smack right there. And I read that issue like more than once. And I'm like, how did I miss the fact that the hand was gone?
You know what? I caught that on my art read through of that issue. My first read through, I completely missed it as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get so caught up in the action, everything going on, I completely missed it. I'm only on my art read through because I solely focus on the images. I don't focus on any words. That I actually saw the hand sitting on the hand still clutching the lever. You know, I'm like, oh God. So I absolutely love that. And again, that completely gets you thinking, what's going to happen next? Because he's got access to tech. I knew in my head, okay, we're going to get a Batman with an artificial hand. Oh, that is going to be so cool. I really got excited for it. And I loved how they told the story in this issue of how he gets his artificial hand. Again, the layout, the script of this whole story, beginning, middle, end, just when you think you have an end, it sets up the next part. Beginning, middle, end, just when you think you at the end, it sets up the next part. And I love that. That's a wonderful storytelling aspect where we get a solid ending, but it's still set up for the next round. The story continues. And it's something that, as we said before, Chip Zdarsky is now on my list because I love how he lays out the story. I love how he tells his tale, but also tells it so the story will always continue. Because that's something that, you can give me a good, solid story that's standalone story, but give me that standalone story that still continues the evolution of the character, still continues the growth. It's something that I'm absolutely loving. And this was, for me, this truly is an issue 900 for me. And I love the fact that they did put the legacy number on there.
I do too.
I'm kind of in the boat. I wish they would shift it over to the legacy number and just keep the legacy number going. I would rather the next one is issue 901 instead of 136. But I'm not one of those guys who would say, oh, it's horrible that they're doing it. I understand why they're doing 136. I like that they did the nod on this one. I'd love a continuing nod to it, but again, I don't think we're getting that. I think it is staying like 136 for the next issue, but they needed to do that for this, and this lived up to led up to issue 900 for me.
In my perfect world, I agree with you, in the sense that I wish that we just kept the legacy numbering all along. In my realistic world, and we're in the same place, by the way. This isn't contradicting you. It's more of just. We were talking about this before we hit the record button. And one of the pieces that I really like about the legacy numbering is I'm a collector. I want my singles of Batman to continue going in order and those type of things. That being said, I can also put them in order by volumes, and that works just fine as well. Here's why I understand it and why I think comic companies are always under the gun to what are new ways to draw in readers, to get jump on points, to grab a larger audience and make noise. And when you relaunch books with top tier characters like Batman or Superman, and you're able to get people to say, yeah, I'll check out, new creative team, new story arc, new direction. I'll check. It's been a while since I've read Batman. I'll read issue number 1. There's no denying the fact that issue number 1 should be a pivotal jump on point, right?
Yeah.
So I get why they do this. I'm fine with the fact that we stamp the legacy numbering on, with issue number 900 like this. I guess I wish they wouldn't wait till 900 to do it. I wish there would be just some form of notation on there of legacy numbering for your titles that have been around forever, like Wonder Woman, like Superman, like, Action Comics, Batman, Detective Comics, Superman. Actually, Superman's a great title example of that. It's funny. I think because Superman, I'm so used to that book having been rebooted so many times that I guess I'm more conditioned to that. I don't know why. I don't know why I seem to be much more comfortable with the title Superman being rebooted than I am Batman for my numbering parts. But I get it, and I'm glad that comic companies are doing this. It's funny that we both on the initial read. I think it's the disbelief that they'd cut off Batman's hand.
Right. Exactly.
I think that's really what it is. It was a bold move. I mean, it's that's and here's the thing: Bruce is a righty. I mean, so they really did a number on him. I will say this. This issue leads to, we just had an issue where we were applauding Superman's scavenging capabilities, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Batman wore it better. This guy found a way to make scavenging look cooler, and it's what Batman does. And I love Superman. I meant what I said earlier. I want a statue of that Superman and everything's over there. But you got to be Clark Kent looking at this going, come on, dude, let me have something. Because this was the coolest issue. I did not see where this was going at all. And I felt like I should have with this storyline, with where it's going with Red Mask. This Joker-focused story and how he was driven. There's a lot of depth and smarts to this story. This idea that Red Mask is searching for... he sees the Joker as the force that we always talk about that the Joker is. And he's got the technology to try and tap into what that is, to try and, what am I missing? What is not allowing me to become this person? Not realizing this really is the chicken or the egg conversation. I mean, and I loved the depth of that. In what he was trying to do, he ultimately is the catalyst. I love time travel stuff. I love when you mess with time and you mess with different dimensions and things like that they can have pivotal, altering effects. And we're seeing the moment where Chip Zdarsky added something into the Joker's origin here. I mean, the concept of the Joker right here is further defined in this moment. And he did it in such I'm very happy with how he did this. I think we understand something a lot more about the Joker now than we ever did before. Not only is there a major status quo change for Batman in the fact that, now he's got another cool gadget that he can play around with, albeit, not the way you necessarily want to get the cool gadget. The Joker piece is really pivotal here. I really like what he did.
Well, and again, we're talking about improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's always been Batman's legacy. That's always something that Bruce does. And he has to, because he is a human. Yeah. So just his time on this alternate Earth, we've seen that improvisation. With this creation of this version of Batman, with this creation of the Batsuit, and just all the gadgets that he has, he doesn't have access to the Wayne tech, so he had to go old school, little improvise, adapt, overcome, that kind of styling with this. So the fact that he gets his hand chopped off, he's got to use the electroshock therapy to cauterize the wound, and then he builds that wicked looking club on the end of his hand, going, okay, well, I'm not going to be fine, it's not going to be pretty, it ain't going to be fancy, but it's going to be effective. I absolutely love just that initial look of him just sitting there with that kind of the pieces basically of the old costume turned into that that club kind of thing. And even just as it's going on, you see just the determination of who Batman is. He's lost a lot of blood. He's in extreme amounts of pain because he had his hand chopped off, because he cauterized the wound with electric shock machines, but he's got to push through that. He always has to push through that, always has to keep going. It's a level of pain he's never felt before, but he's got to keep going. And I love this, those moments of him going through and just, being Batman. Offsetting, you see the rest of Gotham actually rising up and being good people and trying to fight, fight to save their city. It was a really cool story being told in that they build up these characters to say, you can be a better version of you. It's time to step up.
The idea of Batman's like not being trapped in this destiny of how he handles the Joker and the obsession, right? Obsession's a big part of this. How circumstance has driven that obsession. I mean, think about all the horrid things he's been through with the Joker. All the times he's tried to stop the Joker and thinks he's captured him, thinks he's, gained the, put him away and protected Gotham. He's yet at another Gotham. And I love how this one winds up being therapeutic because there's that pivotal moment where did he cause this or is this what Gotham's going to be even without him, and how this being at this city was therapeutic. It's like, you want to blame me for this. I'm the one that caused the Joker. I'm the one that drove that piece. No, I didn't. Look at Gotham. Gotham's horrid without me. So this redefines my battle. It doesn't change my battle. My battle's the same. I want Gotham to be a better place. But I did not create these criminals, these felons, things like that. They are just bad people, at the end of the day. And, I love that this expands and redefines that argument and flies in the face of it, going that, no, you can't blame this guy who's trying to evoke change in, being necessarily the catalyst. It's bad people do bad things, and they're going to continue doing bad things, whether they're dressed up as a penguin or they've been redefined as a mogul of some sort. They're still going to, because it's their nature, do bad things, and I have to course correct that. Yeah. Somebody has to step up. Somebody has to be that symbol pushing through it. And the idea that hopefully I can be that person that gets the ball rolling, I can make some change, but other people will step up too. And he does inspire people in this. I love that there were people that were like Alfred. This Alfred is a great journey. This Selina is a great journey. He knows them, and they aren't changed in the sense that she doesn't become his Selina, but gives him some insight into his Selina. He doesn't become this, he doesn't all of a sudden become the Alfred that Bruce knows, but he's on the path to becoming that guy. I wanted Alfred to go with him. Totally, hands down. I love that they went there. He knew that as a writer. Like, of course people would want that. Let me tell you why he needs to stay. And the story really does that, and Bruce really inspires that. But he doesn't leave Bruce alone. He shows you that Bruce is not alone. I want Alfred back. I still, and I'm hoping we're going to get that story some point in time, right? There's going to be a writer who has a great idea for that, and they're going to do it. It could be Chip Zdarsky. He has a plan. He might have a plan for Alfred down the road. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. What mattered is how he handled it in this story with this alternate version of Alfred, and I really dug the handling of this because it gave us a great Tim Drake moment. I really, really loved seeing I think it's a unique relationship between Tim and Bruce that is different than his relationship with any other Robin. And for longtime Tim Drake fans, this issue just hit it, right? Yeah. Out of the park. And not even just the issue, this arc hit it out of the park. As far as showing that Chip Zdarsky really understands the relationship between Bruce and Tim and what makes it special and unique. And I think it's really important to do that with these characters when you're going to have multiple Robins still running around. You need to show why Damian, if you plop Damian in the story, it would have been a very different story. Not saying that the ending wouldn't have had a resolution. It just would have been a different resolution, right? The Tim resolution needed to be this one, the way that this played out. And I thought that was great.
Yeah. Well, the Tim resolution, again, Tim's journey throughout this story has been outstanding. The fact that it had to be him doing the searching, he is the one for me that would make the most sense to send on that mission. Again, Damian would have gotten the job done. Dick Grayson would have gotten the job done. But Tim Drake has always been that Robin who searches for Batman. Who, he is kind of like a guiding light for Batman. Think back to his initial introduction to the character. He's like, Batman needs a Robin. And that's why he came in the thing. When Bruce first died, and I did air quotes around the word died, it was Tim Drake who said, Bruce isn't dead. I'll find him. And he started going through the clues and saw that he was just lost in time. And they had that whole great moment of when he found Bruce and brought them back, and everything that first, I still remember that first moment when they're on the rooftop. They hit they hit the EMP to take out any cameras in the area, dropped their masks, and gave a hug. It was just that one thing, never gave up on him. Same kind of moment here. Tim never gives up on Bruce, but they didn't just show Tim searching for Bruce. They actually gave us some cool Tim Drake story arcs of how he found how he was able to find Bruce, and even had that moment with him and his mom on a different Earth where he was able to have that kind of closure with his mom and have that great moment there. It was absolutely wonderful, on the time that they spent on Tim Drake stories, the time they spent on Bruce, on this world's Alfred, this world's Selena, all the different support characters we have here. He took his time with it and really developed these characters, getting to the point where I don't want them to leave this. I want Bruce back. Bruce needs to go back to his own Earth, but I don't want this Earth story to end. I want to see what happens next. I want to see the continuing adventures of this Earth. Where does this go? What do these different people do with it? I'm like, what do they've been given a gift. How do they handle it? What happens next? And they create this Earth as a solid Earth for me. I want to see the continuing legacy here.
The continuing legacy, you're right, is really important. I think that happens with any good story, right? You want Flashpoint. Let's use a great example. I like to journey back to the Flashpoint world. We have that Curse of the White Knight world, right? My gosh, the cool spin-offs that have come out of that. It's when you create these rich worlds. And that's happened with some of the best Elseworld stories too, right? Where you've wanted to see further expansion of the story, a further revisitation of it. It's not exclusive to Batman. We had Age of Apocalypse with X-Men, right? I loved that story. I always wanted to see more of what was going on, and we've gotten some good stories set in that world that have shown where things have gone with that world. And I love that further expansion. You're right. This Gotham that was created here, I would love to see again in the future. I hope we do get another story with it, because it was really, really cool. I loved the Joker's use of the Man-Bat concept. As far as that being, and I call him the Joker, but I mean, it's who he is, right? We're seeing this world's version of him. But Red Mask and Crimson, it's funny how the same obsessions are drawn together. And I really liked the use of that here. It was this story did a great job of not overstaying its welcome. Because there comes a point in time where you want to get back to, like, okay, well, tell us the next story, kind of head off of that piece. He gave us a really strong glimpse of this. The pacing was right. This ended right where it needed to. It had a great beginning, middle, and ending to this arc. To your point, you want more. And I think when you do it right and you pace it right, you're not like, okay, well, I'm done with this place. It's just the opposite. You're like, well, I could hang out here a bit longer. Yeah. And I think that's the sign of good storytelling, too, where you're not like, okay, we're done with that now, and I'm glad we're done. I did not feel that way at the end of this story. I felt like you did, that, like, I want to know more. Like, I'm cool with this place. And I think that's an important balance that you need to find in story, too, where sometimes you overstay your welcome, and that's where you lose people. Like, your people will stick around for a while, but if you leave people wanting more, then you've accomplished something. And this story to your point, did a great job of leaving you wanting more and feeling satisfying in its wrap-up, which I'm glad that this one focused with the extended page count so heavily on wrapping up this story the way that it did, because this needed to be encapsulated in an issue this size. I needed this. I needed this level of depth to this conclusion of this. And I didn't need it broken up between a couple issues. I needed it here.
Yeah, and again, one of the things I absolutely love when the realization that Red Mask goes through, where he's trying to become the Joker. He's trying to evolve into the Joker, and he doesn't evolve, he creates them. And we have these three Jokers sitting out there. To me, I'm wondering, is that the three Jokers on the main Earth, that we never know where these guys come from? Is this how those three are created?
I thought so.
Okay. Because
I don't know. I know. Wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I guess I'm more trying to clarify my answer to you because you're asking a great question. At least I took it that way. So I think we're on the same page as far as our assumptions there. And I'm assuming that's what he was going for, but I don't know. So there was nothing that like definitively said that, but I thought the Joker's answer there. I love that the Joker recognized what was happening.
Yeah.
and basically
Care for a fourth?
Yeah. I mean, that was... So I think that was meant to be a nod to that, and I thought that was way cool. Here's the funny part. It defines something about the Joker, but then further adds to the mystery.
Yes.
And I think that was the brilliant piece of this. Like you were to say, well, what's the true origin of the Joker? Well, yeah, let's talk about that. And we could probably talk for 3 hours and still not get there. And I think there's the strong balance of we learned a nugget here that is pretty huge, but it added more questions. And I think that's awesome. That's understanding of what works best with the Joker too, because you don't want that further spelled out, right?
No. The Joker is the only villain I don't want an ironclad origin for. I love that we have everything is kind of like, we think it's this, not 100% certain. It fits his character not to have it ironclad laid out 100%. You know, I love that mystery. That was the first thought that popped in my head. I'm like, well, that even adds to even more, because you think about it, the different times Bruce has fought the Joker, which one was he fighting? Yeah.
I agree. Alfred having his moments, and I think it's an important piece to lay out here. Getting to see this man kind of struggling with this world that protects the wealthy and the elite, right? You've got money, you've got power, you need to be protected, and part of that privilege is you get to be in this tower, and don't you worry, we've got security that's going to protect you and keep you safe. We'll protect the power structure of this city and everything that's going on. So everyone's going to get gassed but the wealthy and the elite, right?
Yeah.
Alfred's like recognizing this is wrong. Like what's happening here is really, really wrong. He was inspired by Bruce, and he starts to become the man because of his son that he was. And I like that he hits that point where he's doing this for his wife, but then also says, and for my son.
Yeah.
You know, this is his chance to make it right with Bruce. And I really loved seeing that build. I thought that pace was great. You and I both dig Alfred the same way. Loved the Pennyworth show. And by the way, people listen to this. If you haven't watched Pennyworth, do yourself a favor. It's easy. I run into this trap sometimes where something's canceled and I hadn't fully watched it. My wife and I have been we're on season 3 right now of Pennyworth. And I got to tell you, that show is fantastic. Don't let the fact that it's been canceled dissuade you from watching and enjoying the experience that it is. Incredibly well written. If you're an Alfred fan, oh my gosh, do yourself a favor and watch that show. It's well worth every moment of it. And it offers a lot for people who maybe aren't traditionally superhero or Batman fans or things like that. It's that kind of gateway show that people can watch and enjoy, and just that might be their only like exposure to the world of Batman. But I loved that about the character, because you get to see him in multiple expanded scenes kind of step up and just become the man that we know that he is at his core. How important interpersonal relationships are to defining who you become, right? Because Bruce passed in this world, and he didn't have the chance to kind of build the Bat world that he did, kind of having to be the oversight for Bruce, be the mentor for Bruce, kind of try to keep him balanced and on the straight, and narrow, and with some form of code with the craziness that is Batman. This Alfred went a very different path, but yet at his core, he's Alfred, and we get to see that, and I loved that. I loved how that played out.
Oh God, yeah, and the great moments between them, where again he's like the Alfred being Alfred, Bruce, and it was neat seeing Bruce reach out to him saying, "You're right, I need help." I can't, if I'm by myself, I get trapped in the darkness. And Alfred's realization that he's dead on Bruce's world was just that wonderful moment of, I'm dead. It's true in your world, And I love just how the realization Alfred has is like, hey, you're not my Bruce. I'm not your Alfred. I'm needed here. I need to do stuff here now. And that, for me, again, absolute wonderful moment. Absolutely, really, 100% agreed completely with everybody's logic. I love the fact that Bruce reaches out to him and asks him to come with him, but also like the fact that he's now staying on this earth. It continues. I want to see Jewel and Alfred teaming up to fight crime. I want to see how that plays out. There's some great moments in this book about Bruce learning who Bruce Wayne is. He's not just Batman anymore. He is Bruce Wayne, and he's got to figure out who he is. He's got to figure out what he's doing with all the people around him, his family, his friends. Again, this was a really, this was a growth for him. Part of me wonders if Failsafe intentionally sent him to this world to learn from it. If not, not to hide him, not to punish him, not to kill him, but to actually learn from this and grow from this world. Did Failsafe know that would happen, or is that just Bruce, being Bruce? That's the question that really does run through my brain on this. Was this all part of Failsafe's plan? Was this part of the Failsafe that if Bruce ever lost his way, he needed to go to this world to see what he should become and help him grow and evolve?
That's interesting. I think there's a lot more to figure out about Failsafe. You're right, as we go forward. I like that this story has a conclusion and sets up this world to have an Alfred and a Batman type figure of sorts, because I love that Batman's got a sidekick on this world of sorts that he's helping out, but that this world still needs that. Jewel, I think Jewel is a great character in this. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that seeing Bruce and Jewel interacting, I was like, I could keep reading a book of their adventures. This would work for me. I want to see the adventures of Alfred and Jewel. I want to see this Selina continue on. Jewel's a cool character. So I think that there's a missed opportunity if we don't eventually see more of this. That part was something. Jewel was cool. I mean, I really liked seeing Jewel, that somebody was inspired into action, because I think that was therapeutic for Bruce too, to see, oh wait, it's not just me. Other people will get inspired into action, and I didn't cause that. I mean, it's and this Jewel's doing the right thing. I'm connecting with Jewel in it's a Robin archetype doing something for Bruce that truly none of the other Robins could do, because this is a world where he does not exist in this capacity. So interacting with Jewel like this, again, is a Robin doing something for Batman that helps Batman stay grounded, connects Batman to reality, keeps Batman from being unchecked and going down a very dark path. And I loved the evolution of Batman that comes from this because of the interactions with Alfred, with Jewel, and even with this Selina. I could see this being a Bruce that can go back to the world. My fear is that this is going to push him to stay further away from Selina, or it might help him evolve in how he interacts with Selina, which would be my preference. I don't know which it's going to be, but both paths make sense for me based on what he's left with her.
Yes.
And that's something that a great story does really well.
And I'm leaning towards this is going to be good for him and Selina relationship. And the reason I'm leaning towards that, you think back to the ending when she kicks him into the chamber, where she's talking and he's having that conversation with her about his life, and if crime ends, if injustice ends, so do I. The purpose is good. I can have a simple life, a wife, a family, but the emptiness inside me would eat me alive. This is who I am. And she's like, sounds like you're saying things to me you can't say to her. And I think that's going to lead to the moment where Bruce, especially when she kicks him into the thing where he realizes, I need to be more honest and open with Selina. And I think the open and honest, completely letting her in, will actually help the relationship. He'll be thinking it's a way to push her away, But instead, I think it'll be a realization, that communication. I think that is the thing Selina is waiting for Bruce to truly open up with her about. I think it'll be a good thing for them. I'm hoping.
The costume is fabulous. I like this piecemeal costume that's put together. We've talked about it in previous episodes. We've talked about this book, but it is something that I really liked. There's a functionality to it, in the way that he's piecemealed it together in that world. But I like the armor around the shins and the knees, like little pieces on it. The way that the mask works and stuff like that. I'm looking particularly at the page where Selina kicks him, and he's sent without the tethers that he was looking for. He doesn't have the belt. So all he can do at this point is follow Red Mask, not go home first like he was intending. It's just the opposite. He is forced now to travel through time. It sets him to a place or to a travel that this is where things really get cool. Yeah. Because to me, it's the worlds that he goes to. We get the 89 Batman world, and I was geeking out because I'm very 89 happy right now. Seeing him interact with that Batman right away, I'm like, oh, this is going to get awesome. I had no idea it was going to lead to jump after jump to basically a who's who. I mean, we get Red Rain, which was, awesome. I loved that part of this. It was like bat cameo after bat cameo, and the art styling changing to match the locations, I thought was really not, when you're honoring 900 issues of continuity and multimedia, including video games for Batman in this, you're doing everything in this one issue. They did a seamless transition between art styles that so did not take me out of Bruce's journey. It made me feel like I was going on the journey with him, which sometimes it can be jarring. It was the right kind of jarring, if that makes sense. It did the right kind of, oh, we're in this world now. Yes. And whereas it's not like, oh man, we got I really wish the art stayed consistent. It was like, no. This is cool. And that's important. I don't know if you and I sometimes approach changing art differently in stories. What was your journey like with this? Because I'm bringing up this question on purpose because I know we're a little bit different in how we appreciate art. How did you like this?
Okay. We're 100% different on the appreciation of art, but we are 100% on the same page on this one. I absolutely loved the changing art with the different universes. And I loved how when Red Mask jumped to a world, it amplified their version of the Joker. 89 version, Joker's dead. Not anymore. He's back. The Batman Beyond version comes back. Batman 66 version amps up to a whole nother level. I loved how they changed the artwork to go along with it. It fit the story. This 100%, again, they needed to do this, in my mind. If they would have kept the artwork, it would have been neat, but it wouldn't have been as easy to identify what world, but also it wouldn't fit the storytelling. Artwork, I think, needs to fit the storytelling. So changing art style, if it fits the storytelling like this, 100% perfect. I 100% agreed with their usage of this. The way they tweak things around. It, for me, was an absolute pleasure and an enjoyment on all this stuff because, again, I was like, oh, that is so cool. Oh, that is so cool. That is awesome. It's one of those enjoyments I had of this issue was the jumping in the different universes. And the fact that wherever he goes, the Joker is the Joker, Batman is the Batman. He still helps. The Bat helps him throughout all of this. Especially love Batman Beyond one because he was a little bit ahead of the game because it's a little bit more advanced tech in that universe to the point where they're actually able to help him out with the tracking and the returns and all that kind of neat stuff. He's able to fix, kind of give Bruce a little bit jump up. And, of course, the Batman 66 moment where every Batman needs a belt and he gives him the utility belt. Those are moments I cheered out loud for.
That one was the one I didn't see that coming. The Batman animated series was there.
Yeah,
we had some, classic Batman comics that were here. I loved the Arkham I don't know if you knew that was the Arkham game, but the one where he's sitting in the chair kind of brooding. That was from the 3-game Arkham series.
Oh, cool.
Or 4-game Arkham
I did not
series,
know
actually.
that.
Batman Beyond being a part of it I thought was way cool. They did a really great job, and I loved that as he went further along and he got to more seasoned Batman, they were giving him tools and things that their experience is what paid off there. I loved seeing the Batman Beyond Batman, having him, which really is our Batman animated series, Batman 2. I love that he gave him, I got to admit, the Kevin Conroy Batman handing him a disc that is going to help him with this. I was jonesing at that. It was really cool.
You know what? It just dawned on me. Mm-hmm. That's the same Batman. So you flip a couple pages earlier.
Yeah.
You see him in the Batman anniversary and the animated Batman fighting alongside Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
And then later, Batman Beyond, he knows he's coming because he lived it as the young man. So the old man version is already ready for him. That's why he had that tech for him. Oh God! It dawned on me just now. Outstanding usage of this, because Bruce, as a young man, dealt with the multiversity. That was the introduction. Old man Bruce is ready for it. There you go. This is what you need. He had all these years to prepare for him to arrive as an old man. That's awesome.
That is the Kingdom Come Batman being a part of it, and just grabbing other different Elseworlds Batmans I thought was great. But the art styling for the Batman 66 I thought was really cool. Because you've got that Batman fighting a very twisted version of the Joker there. I love that he helps. Batman helps. That handing over the utility belt, the little kid in me geeked. I mean, it was so... That was easily the biggest geek out moment for it. Yeah. And I liked that it came before seeing The Dark Knight Returns Batman, because it was almost like a journey through my years growing up. I mean, this was... Now we're going to the Batman from when I was in high school. The one who just brought me back to the game again. And just a different level of like understanding what Batman could be. He gives him the hand. I mean, that was so cool. Seeing those two standing together. And yes, when he said, "You need a new costume," I'm like, oh yeah, he's got to wear that suit. This is how you do an anniversary. And that's what it was. I was sitting there going, okay, I said I wanted a statue of Superman. You better darn well believe I want a statue of this Batman. I absolutely want a statue of this guy with all those pieces, in together. Because he has the shark repellent, and he uses the shark repellent effectively in a comic, basically saying that Batman was more prepared than he was.
I love that line. Again, how many times have we laughed about the shark repellent being used in the thing, and here they're just showing it. It works. Absolutely brilliant. And again, wonderful usage of, just he's chasing him to the end of time now. And there's nothing left. And you have these giant Joker sharks attacking. Pulls out the shark repellent, sprays them, and then finishes off the game. And finishes off the man. And one of the things I also thought was kind of neat, you look, it's his left hand that punches Red Mask, not the cybernetic hand. Now, it could be the cybernetic hand is the one holding on to the side of the building, but he's actually standing. So he uses his human hand. And, it does make me wonder, how much control does he have of the robot hand? What are we going to see? Is he going to keep that same hand, or is he going to use the tech from his world to build him a hand? What are we going to get with the right hand of Batman? What's going to be, how is it going to be made? Those are all these questions that are flying through my head with Batman, with Bruce. Can he adjust to that hand? Will he be able to actually figure out exactly getting it so it feels like it's a part of him again? Yeah.
The hand part is, I really liked the fact that it's not just a replacement hand. It does stuff.
Yeah.
And that to me is, if you're going to do this, give us something a little bit different. And I like that it all of a sudden has these the little tendrils that pop up so that way he can cling to a wall. Yeah, it's kind of Spider-Man-like, but I love that. I mean, I'm like, okay, but it's Spider-Man-like from a Batman standpoint. And that part was really cool. There was so much to enjoy about that. I'm going back to it, but the heartfelt moment where Tim shows up on the scene at the end of the trip, I thought was really neat. The embrace and this, thank you, Tim, for coming for me, for saving me. The Zur-En-Arrh Batman, the various different multiversal versions of the Zur-En-Arrh Batman, where you kind of see, looks like our trip is at an end, time to fight some crime. I don't like that the end with the question mark. I don't think Chip. I don't think Chip Zdarsky leaves anything to chance. There's something to that he's teasing. I don't know what it is, but man, I can't wait for what's next.
Big time. 100% agree with you. I am so excited for the next issue. So excited to see him go back home. Him dealing with Selina. Again, I don't think the story with Failsafe is over, but when does Failsafe come back? Because Failsafe disappeared. They lost all track of him on that Earth. Once he sent Bruce off planet, once he blasted Bruce, destroyed the gun, and then disappeared. So where's Failsafe? That story's not done yet. There's so many stories that I'm so looking forward to the next issue. I'm very happy. I'm very Batman happy right now.
I'm DC happy in general right now. I think they've got a creative teams, a creative library of writers and artists that are just delivering some really great work. I think it's really important that this company continues to evolve. I see that, and I don't know if we're going to get to Speeding Bullets on this episode or not, but I saw recently that Jim Lee's position was upgraded. He's now the publisher and chief creative officer, and his title was expanded and enhanced. I'm very happy about that because I think where the company's going right now with its product, this Dawn of DC is a success. At least for me so far. We're going to, as this year continues going on, we're going to keep hitting on. We've got that Doom Patrol book we're going to have to hit at some point in time. But I want us to try and hit every new Dawn of DC title that's coming out, or every status quo change to our ongoing titles from Dawn of DC, so that way we can just talk about how this has been evolving. But so far, we're now into May. I am really finding this branding to not be shallow. There's a lot of depth to it, a lot of thought to what's going on with the series and the overall direction of the comic line that I'm just really digging. There's been nothing for me that's been a dud so far. And I'm hoping that continues. It's not blind loyalty. This story took me where it did. I'm not forced to go here. I'm going to be very interested to see how I feel about some of these newer series. I'm looking at an ad right now for Spirit World, which I'm optimistic for because of how good Dawn of DC's been. And I'm going to say this is not an insult to the book. I don't feel like I've got this attachment yet to it. But I like the idea of seeing Spirit World and getting to know more of why I should care. Does that make sense? I want the book, issue 1, to tell me why I should care. And it's a 6-issue series. I'm intrigued by it from that standpoint. I don't know if we were in the same spot, but I feel like Dawn of DC is making me want to try some of the new things because of the quality they've been delivering so far. They're giving me a motivation to try stuff that I otherwise wouldn't be as interested. They would get stockpiled. Is that making sense? My stockpile is not what it normally is right now. I am jumping to comics right now.
No, I 100% agree with what you're saying because I'm finding ways to make sure I can read. I've learned that with work, I've got a multiple-step process to actually log in because I work from home. I've got multiple-step process with security and all that kind of verification. And I'm learning that when I start the sign-on process and I start reading a book, and I can actually read a book while the process is going on. Then I got the other stuff. I can do another read through it, and I can actually get a couple books read just in the startup. Just in my sign-on process. Because the sign-on process is multiple stages and multiple steps for things to load and whatnot. So I'm finding creative times when I can actually read. Whereas before, I was like, I'll get to it. But this stuff has really gotten me excited to read books again. And these limited series, I really like that they're doing this limited book series. And a couple years ago, I wasn't a big fan of that. I was like, oh, come on, get ongoing. And now, because I see them taking these limited series and the ones that are doing really well, they're saying, okay, let's continue it on. Let's expand it out. Let's now make it an ongoing if things really go well. So I'm like, for me, is a great usage of the limited series. And if they're going to keep going that route, I'm all in on it. And it gets me excited to read stuff. It gets me, really, wanting more. I think they're doing a good job with this whole Dawn of DC initiative, where it's not just a catchphrase. It's not just a way to sell books. They are actually trying to reboot the universe without doing some crazy reboot, where they say, oh, it's just retell the origin story. No, it's continuing on where the adventure left, but it does have a reboot feel to it, even though they're technically not restarting over year one stuff. But it's a continuation. It's a fresh new energy to the universe. And I'm very happy with what I'm getting so far. I think all these different pieces and stuff, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. They do enough teases and tie-ins in other series to get you going, hey, I kind of want to see that. Like the Spirit World one, without the Lazarus Planet tie-in, I probably would have just completely stockpiled it. But because I know I got a glimpse of what's going to happen there, I'm all in. The free comic book day book, that really also gave great teasers for these different newer books that are going out there, like that Vigil book. Again, Jason Todd connection. Didn't know that was coming. All right, let's see where this goes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm at, and I think what it is they're well thought out experiments. And I think that's something where just throwing things out there randomly to see if they stick doesn't work. These are planned experiments. And some of them aren't going to lead beyond like 6-issue miniseries, or they might be a series of 6-issue miniseries. But I feel like nothing so far has been fluff. Everything has been well thought out, well put together pitches. They're planning on expanding the line and giving you an opportunity to try something out. I love that, like midway through miniseries, or even, just based on the initial numbers of the issue number 1, they're expanding things, doubling the length. And, Green Arrow is a great example of that. Poison Ivy, my gosh, it's an ongoing now. Those are the kind of things that you expect. But I like that opportunity exists for some of these other books. That's that type of thing. I'm going to go back to what I said before about blind loyalty, where you start building confidence. It's not blind loyalty. It's building confidence in a direction. There's a difference between blind loyalty and confidence in a direction. When a direction is well thought out and well planned, you should, as a reader, start expecting that, like, hey, my dollars that I'm putting towards this, my time that I'm putting towards this has value. And when it's well put together like this, you start feeling like, wow, all right, I'm like really excited for this. And I'm at that point for these. That's where the new books are, I think. There's titles that are interesting to me now that wouldn't have been otherwise.
Now I can get out of here.
So we're starting off some speeding bullets, and I love when our team posts. James William Stubb posted a picture from Jorge Jimenez. Picture. It's a piece of art from Jorge. And I love his Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. I like when you get the appropriate level of vicious crazy out of Zur-En-Arrh, because it's the untethered Batman, right? And I think he really captured it well. I'm excited for these. I don't read all of them. DC announces Arkham Asylum, the new DC middle grade graphic novel. Let me explain why I get excited for these. This is the educator in me. I think one of the things is we as comic fans realize when these books aren't marketed directly towards us, they're accessible by us. And I've enjoyed any one of these that I've read, I've enjoyed. So they're there. They really aren't meant for us. And what I mean, I shouldn't say that. They aren't targeting us. That's not they aren't meant for us. They're meant for anybody that's interested in them. But when I see our book fairs at school, one of the things that I've loved over the years, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, has been the increasing amount of graphic novel content that's available for kids. It's there. They get excited. And, readers, there are, especially with kids, just like all of us listening to this, it's a diverse group. Not everybody's going to read graphic novels. not everybody's going to read novels that are kids that are out there. I will say this, graphic novels do have an audience in our kids. I'm excited to see them reading them. And it's not just the selfish comic fan in me that wants to see comics continue. I will admit there is an element of that's in there. But what I really love too, more than anything else, and I don't get the exposure to this now that I'm not teaching the way that I did before, but I will tell you, there was nothing cooler than seeing my kids passing around Bone, the various volumes of Bone, that book getting beat up because of the fact that they loved it. And they were, and you just knowing the depth of the dialogue and what was in there, they're learning from it. And there was a genuine excitement to read with kids that I struggled getting to read any of our class content. The important part is them becoming readers. I love the fact that different, look at that. You have to want to open that up, right? That looks super cool. So I'm glad to see that it's something, the artwork looks catchy. I just mentioned this before in our last segment that Jim Lee re-ups at DC and he's promoted to president, which is super cool. With where things are going right now, it's like, duh, right? Yeah. I think things are really going really well right now at DC. I think their comic product's outstanding. And I think they're just doing some exciting things. The future is bright if this path continues. So kudos to him and well-deserved. And I hope for more good things. At least that's my impression as a comic fan. I got to admit, I don't get caught up a whole bunch on the inside of what goes on at the comic company. And so if somebody's out there saying, you don't understand, you're right. And I say that with respect. And I'm joking about that. I am the kind of fan that I love to read the comic product. I root for the creators that give us comic product. I don't get overly caught up on the politics behind the scenes and what's going on. I do when I read an article of something and, somebody's been wronged or something like that. Obviously, especially if it's a creator, I rally behind them because they entertain me and their efforts, their sharing of their artwork and their sharing of their, talent, ultimately keeps me going in my job every month. And I genuinely appreciate all they've done for me throughout my life. So then I do rally behind it. But, ultimately I want to support their work. That's the best thing I can do for them. And that's our overall goal. So I hope this winds up being a good thing for everyone. I love My Marvelous Escape. It was cool to see Spider-Man and Deadpool. Are you a fan of Deadpool? What is your...
Yeah, I've never read a book, but I've seen all the movies, and I enjoy the movies. And just the concept of the character, just the breaking the fourth wall, who he is, just that moment. I enjoy that stuff. So I would say I am a fan of Deadpool, even though I've never read, any of his. I've never read the books. I've only seen the movies, and I know. Actually, I think I have read some of his books now.
Did you read any of Gale's stuff?
That's what just dawned on me. I'm like, Gale did Deadpool, and I read Gale's stuff. Okay. So I have read I have actually read the Deadpool comics, but again, I was reading it because it was Gail Simone, not to read Deadpool. So, but yeah, I like this panel was hysterical because I love the moment where he's like, yeah, I hope he's fighting for the North because he's not going to like taking orders from a black Captain America. And I'm like, yes, that's actually true. That made me chuckle. That, again, and that's the proper usage of comedy in a comic book. Just that little panel doesn't take away from any of the significance of probably what's going on, but it was a funny little moment.
Valiant Entertainment is starting prose books, and some of their... I love the characters of Valiant. Very similar to my comic backlog, and it's not just DC. I read a lot of comics. I have got a Kindle that is just loaded with things that I want to read. I tend to now flip-flop between comics and prose books in the sense that I'll do like Monday, Tuesday, I'll be reading a few chapters of a prose book, and then, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm reading comics. It's not that scripted, but I do each week give time to both, just mainly because of the fact that I love reading. And I found that for a while there, I was reading exclusively comics and was missing novels. And now I've tried to make sure each week I'm doing both. And I'm loving it. I'm loving the balance. It's just in the sense that I feel like progress. We talk about progression all the time. I feel like my backlog is shrinking, at least on both cases, versus just increasing.
Yeah.
Because my prose book backlog was just increasing for a while. And my comic one was decreasing. I was getting caught up, but I'm like, I'm missing something here. And that's what it was. I'm really, really enjoying that. In some cases, I'm going back through and reading classic books like Doctor Who. For a while, when it wasn't a television series, they had these the New Adventures books that were basically the only way to get new Doctor Who stories. But it was, every book was like a new episode, a series of episodes, I should say. So it had a progression to it, and continued on from when Doctor Who was canceled with the Sylvester McCoy story Survival, continued on the Seventh Doctor's adventures. And they were written to a more mature audience that had kind of grown up with Doctor Who and did some really smart things. And they were fun, and I really enjoyed. So I started rereading those. I'm reading the Time Worm series that kicked it off. There was 4 books in that cycle, and I'm just really enjoying revisiting those. I'm also reading some books by Terry Brooks. I'm reading some of the Star Wars books that are out there because they have this High Republic. Gotten very interested in it, and I'm reading some of those. I've got a lot of things I'm reading right now, and it's the same quote unquote problem that I have with comics, but I'm loving the choice. I feel like we're in this really cool era where it's very easy, if you're complaining about something, to jump to something else, which is, I think, where I get baffled by complaints. Yeah. Just because we have so much available to us now. And between movies and books and comics and TV and, instantaneous ability to jump from one thing to another is just so much easier now. Like, you don't have to walk outside to do that. Which before, that was like, that invented going to the store, believe me, going to the store is an important thing. I love going to comic shops. I love going to bookstores. I still love that. I mean, that hasn't changed in me at all. But the fact that on a rainy day, or, more, I think worse is like a blizzard day, you can plop open your internet and get new stuff on the fly if you're not finding something that entertains you. So it's been an interesting piece, but kudos to Valiant for going that. I love that we've got a shot from the book that we just read with the Batman 66 giving up the utility belt, which was cool. The Flash, please bring it on. June 16th cannot get here soon enough. We're a little over a month away. Obviously, we're going to cover this on the show, and I cannot wait to talk about this one. We're going, right? I mean, it's going to be an opening nighter. Yeah. We'll do
This is an opening nighter. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. It's always fun when we get to go do these kind of things together. Some great Aquaman and Namor artwork, which was cool. James William Stubb posted this, and it's very cool. I liked the Submariner in that's Namor, right? Isn't that the intention?
That's Namor. Yeah.
Good. I got but great artwork.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember when they did the DC versus Marvel. They had Namor versus Aquaman, and it was a pretty cool issue. And I think Namor won because he cheated, right? No, Aquaman won because one of them cheated. Mm-hmm. They called a whale, and it jumped on and landed on the other one.
And I can't
remember which one of them did it.
I want to see the two fight.
Yeah. Well, especially this one, Jason Momoa version. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be super cool to see that. Which leads to the next article. James Gunn says that Marvel and DC don't hate each other. It's just not the truth. I totally would get that. But it's kind of like the whole video game thing, right? I don't know that I believe that Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo hate each other. I think that they obviously want their company to do better than the others. Competition's a good thing. It makes noise. Here's the reality for us. DC doing well and Marvel doing well is the best possible scenario because of the fact that they're going to push each other. So I want the new direction for DC to be successful because of the fact that it will only push Marvel to respond accordingly. And that just means we get new product, new emphasis, it's all about, whether you like it or not, these things are about making money. And if somebody's making money off of something, somebody else is going to try and figure out how to make money off of it, right? So that pushes choice for us. The best possible scenario. It also means, and we don't talk about this a lot, if DC and Marvel are doing well with this, it means that a lot of your independent properties are out there. And boy, independent is kind of a hard thing to label right now, right? Because there's almost multiple tiers of what it means to be independent. What does it mean when you're with Image and Boom versus truly being independent? You know, you could head down a whole rabbit hole with that. But what's nice about that is it forces other companies or pushes other companies to look to comics as a source, right?
Yeah.
And some of these great series that have been out there get a chance to either now be pushed to become some form of series or miniseries or movie or something, and that brings notice to the original work. And that's always a good thing. Yes, it's a subset of the people that actually see it, but it's still a subset, and that's a good thing. So, and it's, you know, ultimately, if that turns into something good for the creators too, where like, hey, this thing that they did a decade ago now all of a sudden is making them money in a new way, which I hope always happens, you know, and it doesn't. I mean, but, you know, you want that to happen more often than not. Or at the very least, it leads to them getting work now, you know, new work now where maybe they haven't in a while. And that's a chance for them to make some money. I'm all for it, you know, and that's, so I hope, you know, the next couple years, we start seeing some really cool stuff from both companies that just pushes the envelope. DC is adding 3 new Golden Age series out in October of 2023. There is going to be a Sandman, Green Lantern, and Flash series. So it's Alan Scott, Jay Garrick, and Wesley Dodds score miniseries in October. Thank you, because the creative teams, we've got Alan Scott, the Green Lantern by Tim Sheridan and Cian Tormey. It's Cian. Apologies for any butchery there. Jay Garrick, the Flash by Jeremy Adams and Diego Olortegui. And Wesley Dodds, the Sandman by Robert Venditti and Riley Rossmo. And that's great creative teams. I mean,
big time.
6-issue miniseries for those. And again, I'm assuming one of those is hitting it out of the park. We're going to see more. And I'm, yay.
Yes.
You know, I love these characters. So you got me on this one. Spider Rex, tiny arms, real thick neck.
Yeah, sing it. Spider Rex, tiny arms, real thick neck, spins a web, Jurassic size, super big but somehow flies.
Again, this is where you're the talent.
And he's asking who's singing that? I am.
That's right. I love it. It's really cool. Thank you for everyone who posts in our Facebook group for the Speeding Bullets, because it's always fun for me to go through and see them. If you aren't a part of our Facebook group, there's a reason I put it in the show notes. There's, you know, it's fun for Jim and I to be able to talk about it on the show, but I encourage you to see the things also that are being linked there and participate, please. If you're finding things out there you want to share, I also encourage you, if you have a blog or a podcast or something like that, please feel free to use our Facebook groups. And I say groups. We have our main Facebook group. The old one still exists, and I post our episodes there as well. But people have used that as a way to promote some of their other stuff, and it's fine to go ahead and do that. Just understand our primary one is the newer one. It's been around for years now. I wish there was a way to merge them. I wish Facebook could just go in and merge the two, so that way we had one Facebook group. I don't want to let go of the legacy one just because it's a chance to send news out to a group of people. But it would be really nice just to have that as one combined group and just be done with it. If anybody knows if there's a way to do that, let me know, just because I would love to do it just for lack of confusion. But thank you to everybody that participates. We are very, very lucky to have a team of people that, you know, Jim and I do this show. We can't do it without our people behind the scenes who are helping really produce part of the podcast. I mean, you really do. And it means a lot to us. As we're heading to episode 700, and I think about the fact that we've been doing this over 17 years now, we have been very lucky over the entire span of this show to just have been associated with quality people that are helping this podcast. And being a niche show like that, it means even more because, we don't cover all of comics. We're niche on purpose. And not because we don't like other comics. It's the goal at the time, 17 years ago, when we started Raging Bullets, was to be something different and, hit a different angle. And I love that now, even in our little world, there's a lot of choice out there of DC podcasts you can listen to that are fan produced and have a lot of different tones and a lot of different directions. And that to me is good for a healthy fan community. And I appreciate the people behind the scenes that help support this podcast. So thanks for all you do.
I got something really quick for everybody. It's a GoFundMe campaign. Adam, who owns and runs North Coast Nostalgia here in Parma, Ohio. North Coast is an absolute wonderful comic shop. Adam's a great guy. COVID really hit them hard, like a lot of the comic shops. And unfortunately, because he's such a small owner-operated business, he did not qualify for some of the business grants that they were offering. So he's been, kind of in some hard times. And so this GoFundMe campaign got started up for him. If anybody could donate to it, or if you could share it or spread the word on it, it would be greatly appreciated. Because as I said, North Coast Nostalgia is one of those true comic shops. This Adam, as I said, he's a great guy. His shop is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the ones I go to on a regular basis. This is one of my go-to shops. So it's the name of the GoFundMe is Helping Adam and North Coast Nostalgia. If anybody can donate, it'd be greatly appreciated.
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing that. North Coast Nostalgia used to have a shop on Lee Road, I think, too, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it's the same company.
Yeah. That company the North Coast Nostalgia has been around for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And Adam bought it from the original people.
Oh, wow.
He worked there when he was in high school. And so he actually took over the company from the original people. So it's, again, as I said, he's a great guy. He's absolutely, one of those really fun guys to hang out with and talk to. And you go to his shop and he's super friendly and helpful. And just what you want from a comic shop, that's what North Coast is. So.
Jim, thanks for bringing that up. And I did find a link to the GoFundMe page, and I'm putting it in our show notes just because I'm a big believer in helping out with this type of thing. And I've got a soft spot for North Coast Nostalgia because I've been a shopper there for years. They're in Parma, which is closer to you now than it is to me. But I'm going to have to make a road trip out there to go ahead and visit the shop because, my gosh, so many fond memories of North Coast Nostalgia. And happy to try and help this out.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. It's always available in our show notes. RagingBullets@gmail.com, of course, is our email address if you prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That links to Twitter. It leads to our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community that really is so important behind the scenes to our Speeding Bullets segments. I want to thank the crew over there for everything that they do. Please consider joining that group. We also put that in the show notes. The About Us section of our show website, you're going to find out how to connect with us on social media and gaming platforms. And I've updated it recently with updated contact information. So if you're on any of the modern gaming platforms, there's ways to contact us there, social media as well. We love connecting with you. On social media, let me give you a quick disclaimer. On social media, please identify yourself as being somebody from the podcast. And the reason being, I'm getting an inordinate amount of crazy spam these days with people trying to add me onto Facebook that are not. I mean, it's clearly a fake profile. So I do not want to miss anybody that's connecting with me because of the fact that you're a friend of ours through this. So don't hesitate to shoot me a message and say, hey, I'm a listener to the show or something like that. And, just know that if I'm delayed in adding you, it's because I'm trying to sort through theirs to see who's a genuine addition and who's not. So don't hesitate to message me if I haven't added you yet. That's why. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What's going on over at DCBService.com, Jim?
We have the Night Terrors event, issue 1 and 2. Issue 1's 50% off. Issue 2 is 40% off. Plus, we also have all of the Night Terrors additional the crossover issues of Action Comics, Angel Breaker, Batman, Black Adam, Catwoman, Detective Comics, First Blood, Flash, Green Lantern, Harley Quinn, Joker, Nightwing, Poison Ivy, Punchline, Ravager, Robin, Shazam, Superman, Titans, Wonder Woman, and Zatanna. All of those also 40% off. Thank you, DCBS.
Did you read the free comic book day issue?
Yes, I
It
did.
is so good. Like, am I right? Are you excited for that event?
Yeah, I'm very pumped for this.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I should have mentioned it in the opening ad when you were talking there. I was like sitting there, I'm like, wait, he's talking Night Terrors. That free comic book day issue was awesome. Anybody listen to this? You didn't grab that? Go get it. It's awesome. InStockTrades.com, the deals of the week. These are books that I'm super excited about because they're two of my favorite. Sandman Mystery Theater Compendium 1 trade paperback. This is a public service announcement. If you've never read this, do yourself a favor. $59.99 regularly, 50% off, only $29.99. This is the way to get this if you've never touched it before. Superman Space Age hardcover, $29.99 regularly, 50% off, only $14.99. If you are a Superman fan and love a terrific story with amazing artwork, I am a big fan of the Allreds, and oh my God, is this a good-looking book? And the story from Mark Russell is just outstanding. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim and I are coming back. We're going to talk, continuing the Dawn of DC, we're going to talk Green Arrow, and we're going to talk Shazam. We will see you then.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
Jim,
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.